This is a pretty informal talk, I'm going to say. It's mostly memes. My teenage daughter has approved all memes in this presentation, okay? Right, so why are we here? Matt Caswell, raise your hand, please. Matt, day one, you pointed out your first commit to the project, right? Okay, so this is my first commit to the project back in 2011, maybe 2010, depending on the way the disclosure went. Okay, so here it is. It looks pretty cool. Funny story about this one. I didn't actually write this. I lifted it, copied and pasted it from another part of OpenSSL, and I changed. Those of you who are math people, you can see that this used to be a lowercase g because it was in a multiplicative group, and now it's elliptic curves. Who would write stuff like that? Me, because I'm lazy and I just wanted to change one character for my patch. Okay. And funny enough, this is 2010, 2011. This is actually the topic of my talk today. And so I kind of wish back in 2010, 2011, I kind of wish they would have actually rejected my patch like Matt's, because then I wouldn't have spent the next 16 years wasting my life. Okay.
And bringing other people down with you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Nicola's coming down with me. Okay, so I didn't even invent this attack that I'm going to tell you about today, and I didn't even really write this patch. So what happened was, I'm not going to tell you the technical background of it, but I was running an instruction cache attack on OpenSSL's implementation of DSA around 2009, 2010. I'm getting this signal out, and it's looking, side channel stuff, it's looking awesome. I can just read it off, right? Okay, but of course, as a researcher, I have the ground truth for what the key is. I'm looking at the ground truth, I'm looking at my signal, and there's just no correlation. And I'm going like, what is happening? I wasted like 2 months of my life I'll never get back, but I learned how to use GDB, which is nice. So I went up a couple of levels in the call stack, and then I found that it was doing this weird padding to the nonces. And once I used that in my model for the ground truth, you know, the signal was matching perfectly with the ground truth, and everything was great. So after that was over, and I did that disclosure with OpenSSL, I went back to this patch, and I'm going, why is this important? Why is this necessary? And then I started to put my, evil hat on and try to think what could I actually do if this wasn't there? Because it wasn't there on the elliptic curve side. It was only on the DSA side. So I didn't write this. Go to the repo and figure out who did. They're a very smart person. I don't know who it is, but I'm a total hack, and I just steal other people's stuff. Okay, BIGNUM side channels 101. This is how it works. Right, so if here's the general problem, right, as described by my teenage daughter. Actually, this would have been when she was in elementary school, right? So you have this on the left-hand side. Oh, my pointer doesn't work. Okay, so we have 3 digits in this multiplier, 3 digits in this multiplier. School book math, how many multiplies are we going to do per? It's an n squared thing, right? So, it works out to about 9 multiplies, right? And you end up with, you do all these partial products, you add some stuff, you do some carries, and you end up with these 3 terms, and you add it up, and hopefully you get that. I'm not very good at math, but I think that's how it works. Okay, but now we put a 0 in here, and now suddenly, what happened? That 3rd term disappeared, right? Because you just skipped this in elementary school, right? You were hoping to get this problem on your math test so you can make it a little bit easier. So everybody here knows side channels. Everybody knows it's not a hard field to get your foot in, and anybody can do it. Even in elementary school, you can do it. So if I put these 2 sheets of paper, if I write these problems on a piece of paper, and I gave them to my daughter when she was 6 years old, and stepped back, and I watched her, and timed how long it took her to do the problems on each of those papers, well, I could distinguish which one is which, right? Because this one will take longer. It has more of the partial products than the other one. That's why BIGNUM will never work, okay? All right, so I'm going to focus more on ECDSA and signing here. I'm not going to go into the math here, but the point is every time you touch a private key, it potentially leaks in some way. The way that OpenSSL, actually all crypto libraries that I have, a bunch of them, let's say that. There's different places it can leak. This is in the scalar multiplication part, which is in the R component of the DSA signature. And then you're going to invert the nonce here. And then we have a different key over here. This is D, which is the long-term private key. So the idea is these are one-time keys. They're supposed to only be used once. and this is a long-term key. But anytime you do these operations with private keys, it potentially leaks. There's 3 ways it's leaked. In OpenSSL, if you go to the CVE history, there's a CVE for every one of these places. OpenSSL is not special in that case, there's a ton of CVEs for stuff like this. Okay, so come along around 2011, I wrote this paper. Fun fact, rejected from chess. So there you go, academics. And now it's, I'm gonna come out and say this. This is the best paper I have ever written. Thank you, Nicola. Don't want to be a downer, but I'm gonna tell you, this is the best paper I will ever write. So I peaked in my 20s. I'm gonna claim that you peaked in your 20s too. But at least we peaked together. Okay, so that's the paper. So, we were able to exploit the leakage in this part of the signature because the nonce wasn't being padded. The idea is that the longer nonce you have, it takes more time, and you can measure that in the remote sense. Okay, so what does it kind of look like? This is what the vulnerability looked like at the time. So we have here is where the scalar is being looked at, right? So we have a while loop here. It actually tells you what the vulnerability is. So I don't necessarily have to point out too much. It's in the source code. So it finds the topmost bit and goes one past it. Because if you're doing some kind of scalar multiplication or exponentiation, you start from the effective top bit, right? The other of it doesn't really matter very much. Right, so you can skip all those 0 bits at the beginning, just like you skip them when you multiply, right? So it makes sense from an implementation perspective. Whoever wrote this code, it's not their fault, because if you go to a crypto textbook, this is exactly how academics are telling you to do it. If you look at the pseudocode, it says, bit length of the scalar, and you start from there. So they, faithfully did what the academic community told them to do. Right, so it drills down to the top most significant, the top set bit, and it starts the computation from there. Everything that's happening here is constant time. So the point is the execution time of this function is directly correlated with the base 2 logarithm, the bit length of the actual nonce, okay? So that was the vulnerability. And this is what the timings looks like over, I don't remember exactly which experiment this is. What this is trying to show you is that the longer the nonce is, so this is CPU time on this side, right? So the longer the nonce is, so the higher, the closer towards the top the bit is set, the more time it takes. So again, this is the multiplication problem all over again, right? It's taking more time. So, and as we go down, we get these very nice tight distributions. Things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is from 2010, 2011, something like that. And we were able to exploit this over the network. CERT issued a vulnerability note, which is the only vulnerability note of my career. I have a lot of rando useless CVEs, but this is one I'm pretty proud of because they issue these for things that are being, potentially actively exploited on the interwebs. Okay, so I was pretty proud of that fact. I think I have some time. So I'm going to tell a story. My students love taking my classes because we don't actually do any work. They just listen to me tell stories. So this started when Nicola came to me. I think you had taken I don't think I've told Nicola this story before. I was teaching a crypto course, and Nicola came to me and wanted to do a master's thesis project. And we get these requests all the time, but you only have so much. I was only a PhD student, right? So you only have so much time to supervise. So you pick them very carefully, and you have to give them certain types of problems. For the academics in the room, it's very much a trend these days. When you give a student like a capstone or a thesis or something, you want to set them up for success, which is nice. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you have to give them easy problems or things that you know are going to succeed. And I see this more in academia. It's a lot of hand-holding to, here, let me bring you towards your degree. So that, I don't know. There are different perverse incentives for who wants a person to get a degree from the university. I'm going to leave it at that. But so when Nicola came to me, don't do that, what I just said. You will never do good science if you do that. You will never find anything interesting. You will print a diploma, but you won't actually move forward science. I suggest to do the exact opposite. You should give them a problem so hard that you think a solution does not exist. And that's what I did with Nikola. I totally sandbagged you, and you didn't note it. I gave him, I knew this leak existed, but I'm looking at it just the way the TLS protocol works, and I'm going, there's no way this is exploitable just because of some other parts that are crypto parts that are happening. Anyway, I didn't want to mess with it, so I said, Nikola, just here, take this. Yeah, you can do your master's thesis. And I knew there was no solution, so I was like, it's fine. So I went to go work on something else. I don't remember what. Nikola came back to me about a month later, and he said, okay, I'm done, so what next? And I said, no, you're not done. What kind of silliness, Bob? Remember, I figured Nikola was doing some silly thing like modifying the library or something like this. And yeah, so I'm going, Nikola. Yeah, exactly. So Nikola steps me through it, and it ends up that it's actually working. So, that's my advice as a professor. Don't set your students up for success. Give them problems that you don't think solutions actually exist. I've spent 16, 17, 18 years now of my career playing whack-a-mole, and that's what this talk is about. So, who's with me in the whack-a-mole game? Okay, I see a lot of hands. Hey, but some of these people are on my next slide, so hang on. Here's the whack-a-mole game for the fact that we are still trying to squash that original bug on slide 2 that I gave today. So here's me and Nikola down here in 2011. Doug, who presented here at the conference, found the same bug in Mozilla. I said 2012. It's not really 20. I couldn't, well, anyway, here's the same bug found in Mozilla. The fact that you found the same bug in an elliptic curve library for Mozilla and OpenSSL, if you know the history of the EC library and OpenSSL, should surprise you zero, right? Because it's the same base, like they all came from the same root. Okay, what happened here? There's a gap where nobody's playing whack-a-mole. What happened? I went and got a real job. I went to work at Qualcomm, right? So I wasn't playing whack-a-mole. I went to product security and got a real job. Qualcomm, great company to work for, big props, loved all my colleagues there. I eventually moved back to academia around 2014, 2015. David Wong reproduced some of the work, part of the work in 2015. I won't go too much into that. Then there was a gap. I don't know what happened here. I was on the tenure track, so I was in the weeds. So I was assistant professor making dirt money, so I don't know what I was doing.
You were writing grant proposals?
Yeah, I was writing a grant, so I eventually landed the ERC grant for 1.5 million, billion, yeah, and million, not billion. And then I didn't know how to spend all that money, and that's what happened here. We learned how to spend 1.5 million euros of your taxpayer money. Thank you very much. That's sincere. Thank you for donating your tax money for me to do research. Okay, then the Czechs got involved, right? So Minerva came around 2019. These talented researchers from the Technical University in Czech Republic. So they started just expanding this into all sorts of different smart cards and stuff like that. It wasn't just OpenSSL. TPMFL came after that. I think that was German researchers. Found it in TPMFL, they found it in TPM modules. You could basically query the TPM and time how long it took to get the response back. This is one of my favorite papers. Please go read it. It sounds kind of egoistic to say one of your own. Well, it's one of the favorite papers that I have written, and I think everyone should go read it. Deja vu. Why is it called deja vu? Eventually, part of my career, the shtick was going, finding side channel vulnerabilities, reporting them, fixing them. And then Bob, it's the paper generating machine. That's my career. I'm a total hack. I kind of got tired of that and disillusioned around 2021. So, and that's, strangely is when the OpenSSL security policy started to shift from issuing locally exploitable microarchitecture attack vulnerabilities. They don't do that anymore, only to remote stuff. Remote stuff is harder to find. So I said, okay, screw that. I'll just move to another library where I can, continue my paper generating. And so we did it for Mozilla NSS. And, there are different ways to do it. So I think the way that most researchers would do it would take every single bug that you did in OpenSSL, because we wrote one bug, one paper, one bug, one paper. You could do that for Mozilla, right? So just totally just grab that stuff and one bug, one paper, one bug, one paper. I didn't have the time or the inclination to do that. So what we did is we took all those CVEs from OpenSSL, we wrote one paper, we refound every single bug that had existed in OpenSSL that we had already exploited, these side channel vulnerabilities, and we wrote one paper on Mozilla and said, okay, we're still in the same place, we haven't made any progress. Okay, so that was these were, a whole bunch of whack-a-mole happening here. And now, we had some nice presentations yesterday about new side channels, so we have some of the Red Hat folks here have joined the whack-a-mole game. Yeah, so it's really fun, and it's sunny on the beach, and I don't know. It's a party, so let's all get together and generate CVEs and papers. I'm still playing whack-a-mole, so today I'm going to present a zero-day vulnerability in boring SSL, which is the same thing from 2010. I am a one-trick pony. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, so what does this mean? We're all playing whack-a-mole. We're all trying to solve the same bug, but we don't really seem to be making very much progress. So, and more people. Jeff Johnson, are you in the audience? Jeff, so on the back panel, you said that you feel like you're trying to start a chess club and people aren't. Chess isn't cool and you can't get people to show up, right? Okay, I have the opposite problem. I started a chess club and then I realized I don't want to play chess anymore. And I don't think the chess club should even exist. But people keep showing up anyway. And I keep telling them, go away, go away, go away. But that's the party. We're all generating papers and generating, I'm going to be really honest, I have a big pile of CVEs which are totally irrelevant. And which is generating a lot of work for security people, and they'll complain about these fake CVEs, but they don't complain when they're cashing their paychecks. Let me tell you that. And this paper called Deja Vu. I'm coming back to it. Read the conclusion. There's a paragraph called Cui Bono, which gets to the root of the human nature on why this is happening. We all have perverse incentives for doing this. I'm building my career. Security engineers are building their career. Software engineers are building their career too. And we're all in this weird, twisted ecosystem where we're generating fake results and cashing checks. Okay, so move to BAC meeting, Foundation and Corporation BAC meeting, Brno 2025, in May. So this wasn't the one that happened last week. So Peter, are you in the audience? Here we go, Peter. So this is where the Bollocks track was born, right? So Peter, says timing attacks are Bollocks in the meeting. I don't think I'm misquoting you. I think that's a pretty accurate quote. And I said, I'm supposed to be offended. I have built my whole career doing this. How can you call my career Bollocks? But it is, yeah. So I said, yeah, it is. And Constantine BIGNUM is a pipe dream too. So we had released a poll to the OpenSSL communities where we were asking academics, like, what do you want to prioritize? And like number 2 came up, Constantine BIGNUM. And I think that's a very easy thing for academics to say. And say, oh, just make it Constantine. Oh, just make it Constantine. What I'm telling you is that's not possible in this case. In your little small experiment that you ran and published a paper about that maybe 2 people will read, you can do it there, but you can't do it in boring SSL. It just doesn't work that way, okay? And when I say that, what I would say, as a library, try to solve this problem. Try to write a modular exponentiation routine that solves a purpose of doing RSA signature verification plus DSA signatures. Do that in constant time and tell me how it goes. It's impossible. It is physically impossible. There are different use cases that you just cannot comprehend, okay? Okay, so I said, yeah, it's a pipe dream. Anyway, Paulie was on the call somewhere in I don't know, off the coast of there we go. And he said, boring SSL did it. I'm not one to argue in that respect, especially at the backs. We end up on these tangents and it takes like an hour to talk about, maybe, well, you end up with people who have differing opinions and they don't want to converge. So I didn't argue, but I knew for sure it wasn't going to be hard to find one. And that's what I'm gonna demonstrate today. So I'm gonna have a boring SSL 0-day timing attack. There's the QR code. There's the URL for the reproducer. So I wonder what we want to take away from this before I get to the exploit. here's what I want to take away. So what are the resources? Google, Boring SSL, has a lot more resources than OpenSSL, a lot more. The revenue, I checked yesterday, it's 350 billion, that's a B this time, dollars. So how much time, so you pair that against me, just rando dude in Brno for the weekend. So what do you think that, you know, what resources do you need to find a timing attack vulnerability in OpenSSL's, sorry, Boring SSL's BIGNUM code? A laptop, that's yeah, I'm gonna guess that's probably one. Coffee, no, yeah, but remember, hold my beer, so it's beer, not coffee. So here's the answer. So over the weekend, I had no slides, so I went down to the and bought a, that's falafel. It's not, it says kebab, but it's falafel. I'm 44, so I'm trying to increase my fiber intake. And I bought 2 Czech beers, also cheating a little bit. Those are tall boys, so it's like maybe 3 beers in reality.
Same place I got food.
See, even Bob's been to the magic shop that will, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna run the exploit now, so let's do that. Okay, so it builds, and you can see what we're doing is we're linking against Boring SSL, but I don't want to do like, sorry, I'm pointing like that works. I don't want to do a smoke and mirrors thing totally, so I am going to run it in the debugger really quickly, or not. Come on. There we go. I am stumbling through this. Okay. Actually, sorry, I want to make sure it's actually functional first. Okay, it seems to be spitting out some stuff, so I'm going to run that. My point here is not to show you where the vulnerability is. My point to show you is the harness that I have here for the experiment is linking against Boring SSL, and this isn't some silly thing where I have hacked the library, or I am running some strawman implementation, or it's in fact accidentally leaking against OpenSSL or something like that. That is not what's happening. So here is the code. It broke there. So we're going to go there. All right, so this is my harness. We start the timer, we stop the timer. What's actually getting timed is reading a private key from a bio, okay? So, and that's what's being reported here. So this is not a microarchitecture timing attack, this is a remote timing attack. Oh, I'm supposed to show you it's Boring SSL. Okay, so when I step into the function, you can, if you believe this level of non-smoke and mirrors, it's a Boring SSL path, and you know, it looks like Boring SSL. So I'm gonna stop there. That's basically the harness. So the idea here is that when Boring SSL loads a key, the time for it to load that key is actually dependent on the effective bit length of the secret key. So these are some elliptic curve keys, and when you run this experiment, you'll end up with data like this, which looks pretty nice. So we got longer stuff over here, we got shorter stuff over here, and these are statistically separable. So I don't know, so like, okay, so there's this second distribution happening down here. I don't know how many of you look at CDFs too much. So it's 2 distributions mixed, and I don't really know what's happening there, but I bet if you buy me another falafel and 3 beers, I can probably figure it out. Okay, so that's the 0 day. So I'm going to argue that Boring SSL did nothing wrong in this case, and I'm going to show you something really quick. I don't know how much. Brr. Is that big enough to? Okay. So I'm going to generate a key real quick, and we're just going to look at it. Nobody wants to do this, but like. So I'm going to dump, we don't want to look at this, but like, okay, so here's a private key for an elliptic curve. Those of you who are deeply damaged like me will be able to look at this hex string and say this is also Darius in 1, right? So let's go, ASN1 parse is a really nice tool, so I can just point it at that. It's at offset 24. And it's some stuff, I don't know, binary blobs. I do know because I spend way too much time with this. This is the public key, this is the private key. Yes. So the point here is that actually this encoding of the private key in the ASN1 structure, if you know how numbers, integers in ASN1 structures work, it has a length parameter, right? And you're supposed to peel off the 0 bytes. That's what it says you're supposed to do. The standard says this, okay? And so from a cryptographer perspective, where you have, from a cryptographer perspective, where the model is that all addresses are public, I'm going to take a little bit of liberty, but just basically here you have addresses in the ASN1 structure. So technically, if you consider these public, then the standard itself is broken from the cryptographic perspective, and it will be forever, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. We did some really nice work, a follow-up to the Raccoon paper, which had a very similar thing, where the standard was dictating you had to peel off some bytes from a number before you run it through a KDF or something like that. The standard was broken. Thomas, I pushed a fix, and Thomas, is telling me, oh, well, I think he knows the problem too. There's no way to really fix it. But anyway, he still poked me and he said, oh, this part isn't constant time. I'm like, yes, but the whole thing is broken, so I don't know what you want me. I do know what he wanted me to do. He wanted me to tighten it in certain places, but I didn't want to write some really dirty code for stuff that I knew that wasn't constant time to begin with. But I did it because Thomas asked me to do it. So, but it's still there. The Raccoon will still work in that respect. It's a problem at the standards level. So I claim it's not really boring SSL's fault that that's happening. It's at the standardization level. Having said that, you shouldn't say your stuff's constant time when it's not. So, right. So where do we go from here? We're still kind of generating the same vulnerability over and over. The answer is we go here. This was also mentioned by Matt on day one. There's a new project with OpenSSL where they're going to spend 400,000 euros to fix some issues. So I don't know how that money's going to be spent, but I have 4 degrees. I'm a doctor of science, so I am very specially skilled in data analysis and visualization. So I produced this one on the right-hand side here. We have Google's revenue in blue, and then the OpenSSL project, their budget is in yellow. So I'll let you figure out why you can't see the yellow bar. So, in the BIGNUM code, you're going to address a backlog of user-submitted GitHub issues. I don't know I'm not trying to poo-poo y'all's project. I think it's awesome. Y'all got money for this. Like I said, I got 1.5 million euros to do it too. So, but don't do that. You should burn those issues to the ground. Ignore those, and so don't do that. Don't join the whack-a-mole game. Don't join my chess club. It's not fun. It's not fun. Okay, so don't play whack-a-mole with us, please. Please do something else with the money. Okay, so what's the solution? I'm supposed to talk about how to fix this. A lot of my stuff already got scooped. I don't want to have just a negative talk. I want to have some positive stuff too. A lot of my stuff got scooped by Dan and different talks on providers and stuff, but I'm actually really happy about that because there's so much talk about providers and what they can do for you in terms of security. So it's really awesome that everybody's already on the same page that providers can be a key kind of avenue to fixing this and doing your own thing. So, this is a diagram that I stole from Nicola. The idea is right now, BIGNUM is kind of linked everywhere. It just kind of bleeds everywhere into OpenSSL because you have so many algorithms that are trying to use the same code base, right? This is a pipe dream. Dan yesterday said to replace it with calls to S2N BIGNUM. I'm going to go even more, crazy and say you should just nuke the whole thing. And I'm serious. You should dump that code in the river and never look back. Okay, Thomas, your signature used to say I'm going to paraphrase something like, "No matter how far you are down the wrong road, don't be afraid to turn back. We're 20 years down the wrong road, but we can still do the right thing." Okay, burn it and salt the earth behind you. Okay, so The answer is providers. I've stuck them all over here because it's your responsibility as a community to do these things. Of course, these should be internal to different providers, but put on your engineer pants and do things yourself. Everything should be a single stack. These things should come basically from SuperCop. All the implementations are there. Take these one file implementations. One file maps to one provider. They do one thing with one parameter set. Sometimes you have to parameterize it depending on the bit length. There is no variable anything. Everything is a provider, and that's the way crypto works. There is no BIGNUM. It doesn't exist anymore. That's my talk. I'm sorry I got a little bit fast towards the end. But yeah, please, let's all help burn BIGNUM together. Thank you for attending the talk, and I'll take any questions that you have at this time.
Hello, Billy. I have a question. So you suggest to not dealing with constant time BIGNUM approach. What alternative approach do you propose?
So, hit me one more time, Dmitry. Could you repeat the question?
Repeat the question.
If you think that we should not waste time on BIGNUM constant time stuff, what is the proper way to move forward to get off the whack-a-mole game?
So the proper way, I can't say as a, for the crypto community at large, but for OpenSSL, the way to do it is very similar to the code that you see that came in for like X25519. X25519 doesn't have to use BIGNUM, right? It's just a one file implementation where everything is computer verified, it's formally verified, right? So step one, Dmitry, the solution is if you are writing crypto code, you are doing it wrong. So everything should be computer generated. If you touch it, you're doing it wrong. You're paying your own salary. You have all these nice implementation tricks. I know because I played in my own sandbox for a long time. But guess what? I'm sorry. Those skills are not relevant anymore. Your bit twiddling silliness. All that's done by computers these days. You can apply your very nice skills, like ability to learn new skills in other areas. I believe in you as engineers. Just don't waste time on BIGNUM. So.
Well, the idea of using like one implementation for 2048, one for 3072, and that's nice, but I have that nice key that was generated by GNU TLS, and it's 2376 bits. So what about those?
Yeah, those people are going to have a bad time. You can't make everybody happy. I don't know what to say. You should point them at another library and say, go use that. I agree. And for years and years, OpenSSL is the de facto toolkit. You can make it do crazy silliness, right? Especially if you get into like ASN1 parse, that command, like you can churn out some crazy stuff that nobody's ever thought of. It's a great question. I don't have a solution. I think you know that there's no real solution except to tell these people, too bad, you need to move to something else. So.
Yeah, I have more of a remark rather than a question. I'm very pissed at you. You didn't just stole my diagram, you also took away my next grant proposal with the SuperCop integration you provided.
So SuperCop is a little bit of, that's just an example. Of course, you can start plugging in these implementations from anywhere. They can come from like fiat crypto, which will generate some stuff. Even the Amazon library that Dan was talking about. Maybe we can piggyback on that. I don't know. We're researchers. Let's go figure it out together. So.
I'm going to quickly put myself in the queue. Is your vulnerability in the BN functions in Boring or in the PEM parser?
So I don't know, Bob, but if you buy me another falafel and 3 beers, I might figure it out. So
I actually have a pretty good idea, but
all right.
Yeah. Why can't any timing issues be solved by inserting like sleeps that make it up to a constant time?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Why can't you solve any timing side channel by inserting like random sleeps?
Oh yeah, randomness. Yeah, the problem is that randomness is Gaussian. So if you repeated measurements, we'll just remove that. I think this is a very common thing. People think I'll just delay my thing and everything will work out fine. That's not true because the randomness statistically is Gaussian. So if you do enough measurements, the way we know about Gaussian noise, you can just subtract it off. So the same way you do in basic. Sleeping to constant.
Sleeping to a constant time.
So that might fix some remote things. It's not going to fix local side channels. So.
Because nobody cares about performance, right, Engvi? It's okay. Nobody will yell at us if performance sucks.
We got Victor here.
Sure. I can speak very loud. Does the timing side channel in private key actually allow you key recovery? Or is it just, you can see a signal, you know how long the private key is. But with the non-side, no, you can get key recovery. Can you get that from the private key length?
I think Boring SSL thinks no, because they said that key loading is not a critical operation for them. So, and it's not, that's maybe true until it's not, and then we do magic things in academia. But what I'll still say, Victor, is that if your library is supposed to be constant time, it needs to be constant time. And so the question is this key loading vulnerability relevant? And I don't know. Again, I only spent a weekend on this, right? So I don't know. Peter.
Thanks. So referring back to my talk on Tuesday, if we haven't found any evidence of attackers actually using these vulnerabilities because every other attack is much easier, should we be losing sleep over it?
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. So we shouldn't be losing sleep. We shouldn't be losing money. I don't know. So I don't know a better way to put it. So, Peter, I know your stats, timing attacks are bollocks. I think it's mostly true. I know the tricks that academics play. We do things like modify the library. We do things like compile with debug symbols, like I literally did in the demo, right? You can see if you go check the make file. So we do all these tricks to make things work, sweep things under the rug. I don't think that they're relevant. We should spend time on other parts of the library.
Follow on to Peter's question. If you believe this is bollocks and we shouldn't expend, stuff doing this, I will contend that sure, we can maybe have different implementations and do this, but should we be paying a cost in software complexity and maintenance to solve a problem that no one is that is not practical to use?
So great question. So what with the formally verified stuff, and this piggybacks on yours, Peter's. So there's the whole timing attack thing that cryptographers are going to use to sell their papers, which is nice. But what I take away from the formally verified stuff is that the code is correct. I don't actually care about the timing stuff. I care that the code is correct, because bug attacks where you have bugs in your crypto where you screw up the math, those are remotely exploitable. They are deterministic. I'm the only one in the world who has implemented one in the wild against OpenSSH. So I know, so those attacks are real. So I don't care about the timing part. I'm taking this residual effect of all this formal verification work and extracting the correctness out of that, which is super important.